A video game console is your pride and joy. You spent your hard-earned dollars on it and want it to last as long as possible, right? Well, here are 10 things you should never do to your game console. Now, starting off at number 10, listen, don't use substandard USB-C charging cables for your Switch. Look, everyone was excited when we found out the Switch was going to use USB-C. That's a damn fine connector with fast charging and data speeds, and the possibilities were really exciting. It's one of my favorite connectors I've ever had. That said, it was a bummer to find out that not all USB-C cables are created equal, and that you need a specific spec to use with the Switch. In a Japanese FAQ from Nintendo, it was stated that you should only really use USB-C cables with a 56K resistor with the Switch. Nintendo of Japan went on to further state that using non-approved cables or cables that don't meet the power spec can damage the unit and prevent it from receiving sufficient power. There have been reports that this has happened, so you definitely don't want it to happen to you. Switching over to number 9, on the subject of the Switch, if you're rocking one, maybe stick to the official Nintendo branded docks as well. After the Switch 5.0 firmware update, many users who were using third-party docks from the likes of Nyko or companies like that were reporting that their consoles were being bricked completely. Nintendo commented on it and did start offering replacements, so it's just something you need to be aware of and be extra careful of. The way we like to approach this stuff is that you're dealing with an over $300 console, so you really just want to avoid any risks whatsoever, so stick with docking it with an official Nintendo thing. Or really, like I said with everything, just do your research. Because at number 8, something you really shouldn't do, don't just go deleting things all willy-nilly to make space in your hard drive. A Reddit user by the name of rgoff31 was clearing out stuff on his PS4 and deleted a seemingly innocuous folder that just so happened to contain the files for all of their disc-based games, as well as the DLC and patches for those games. So as a result, yeah, a bunch of space cleared up, but they had to re-download all those game files, which is a total drag. A minor inconvenience, sure, especially in 2018 when everything is more or less backed up, but still something you should pay some mind to. With number 7, you should always think twice about leaving your stuff plugged in. For example, a Reddit user by the name of Wicked828 went on vacation but forgot to unplug their Xbox One S. Now, I know most people don't unplug their electronics when they go on vacation or leave for extended periods, but it's definitely advised, and looking at this person's Xbox, I've never felt more compelled to do so. This user's Xbox seemed to have been the victim of a freak power surge that blew out through HDMI inputs, blowing out the cables and just essentially burning the console up. There is such a very small chance that this can happen. Seriously, it's almost like 1 in a million, but it's still worth being aware of if you're extra cautious. Do your research on proper cables and surge protectors and maybe even lightning rods, just so you don't end up like this guy. Switching gears at number 6, let's talk about jailbreaking gaming consoles. And look, jailbreaking your console can have some cool advantages and give you some interesting features that you wish the console had in the first place. But it could screw up your online experience, and jailbreaking in general would just kind of fuck with the online meta by opening the floodgates for hackers and cheaters running aimbots and other hacks. And while it's not a real issue now, as jailbreaking was made legal in 2012, so you can still do what you want, you don't have to listen to us, prior to that, doing so was considered a violation of the DMCA, and some people actually landed themselves in jail for the act, which is a fun fact. But really, what I would say, if you want to jailbreak it, fine. But I think you should only do it if you're really smart. Because if you're just following some random forum, chances are sometimes you're not going to be able to diagnose a problem yourself, or when you run into a snafu later down the line after you've finally jailbroken it, you may have a lot of issues and not be able to restore the console back to its former glory, and half the time some jailbroken shit just sucks, and sometimes I think the core experience that you pay for is still better at the end of the day. But hey, with this one, we're going to say you do you. At number 5, this is one that we just personally feel strongly about. Never keep things stacked on your gaming console, as it could possibly overheat or damage that console. I mean, look, the Xbox One S is a perfect example with the exhaust fans on top. You're interrupting airflow and you're gonna make your console overheat or worse, just burn out completely. It might sound like a no-brainer to you, but there are some people out there that like to try and play it fast and loose and take the risk by covering it and think that that's not that big of a deal with all the other ventilation on the console. But don't do it, it's just dumb. With any console or PC really, be mindful of how airflow works in your cabinets and wherever you have your game stuff. Even if there are no vents on the top of the thing, you still wanna be mindful of what you put on top of a console. Because at number 4, let's take a little trip down memory lane, kind of. Don't touch the lens in the console itself. This is still worth pointing out, but it's really just first grade stuff. This isn't much of an issue with modern consoles like Xbox One or PS4 where you just pop the games into that slot, but on previous consoles with easily accessible lenses for disc reading, don't touch that shit. Or if you're taking apart your new console and you're trying to fix something, definitely avoid it. Sure, you may not wreck your stuff with like an accidental graze, but they are fragile, so be aware. Even a faint fingerprint can impact the ability to read a game disc dramatically, and replacing the part can be a huge pain in the ass, and that to me is the biggest issue. But coming down to number 3, listen, remember the cardinal rule. Don't turn off that console during a firmware update. Seriously, just leave it be. Make sure the battery is charged or everything is plugged in, or whatever. But for the love of God, don't turn it off during an update. It's a pretty reliable way to flat out brick your console or lose something in storage and just be totally screwed. It's not always, but when it happens, it really sucks. There's a reason why the interface itself specifically tells you this every single time, so you should listen to it. But with number 2, going back to firmware updates, it might be a good idea to wait and see how, say, PlayStation or Xbox updates are instead of updating right away. Sure, you lose online functionality for a minute, but Sony in particular has a pretty bad track record of releasing updates that either temporarily or permanently brick consoles dating back to the early PS3 era. Google it and you can find several instances of similar situations. Whatever the console is, sometimes it's just better to play it safe. Things have gotten better, software updates are usually more secure now, but I always think it's better to just make sure an update has an all clear before updating completely. Check a website or Twitter or something. All it takes is a minute. Even software designers aren't perfect, so just be aware. Now at number 1, some advice for some people that are probably not very smart. Look, don't follow weird instructions you find on the internet to unlock fantastic features that sound way too good to be true. Just think about some clickbait article you've seen at the bottom of another website that says something like, oh, here's something that Nintendo doesn't want you to know, especially in the beginning. Because look, console launch times are strange. Not everyone knows everything about their hardware, and everyone's just kind of acclimating to it altogether. This was specifically true in late 2013 with the launch of Xbox One. A lot of people wanted backwards compatibility with older generations of software, and they came across a graphic with instructions on how to enable the feature on their consoles. The problem there, though, was that if you followed the instructions in this strange and unauthorized image, you would actually wreak havoc on the console and make it completely inoperable. People have been duped by stuff like this that circulates. This isn't the first time trolls will make a hoax like this that would wreck people's hardware, and it certainly won't be the last. So maybe just don't follow random strange instructions you find online. And with this point, it comes back around full circle to what I've been saying throughout this entire video. Just do your research and pay attention. Because those are 10 things we think you should never do to your game console. Obviously, you should never dunk it in water or leave it outside, but we thought those were obvious, so we tried to go a little bit deeper. But if you got any more advice for people, we'd love to hear it down in the comments. And let us know what you think. Have you ever made a terrible mistake with a console? Did you open it up, or did you download the wrong thing? I know I certainly have. So let's learn from each other's mistakes. And if you enjoyed this, click the like button, because that really helps us out and we would really appreciate it. But if you are new, you should subscribe, because we put out stuff like this every single day. Well, as usual, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.